The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Nick Eatman, David Hellman, Ambar Garcia, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Thursday, January 13th, 2022, Season 17, Episode number 97. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. Live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We've got a lot to get into. We're getting you guys ready for Cowboys versus 49ers. That happens this Sunday, 3:30 p.m. at AT&T Stadium. We'll be joined in a little bit in the second segment by Bucky Brooks of NFL Network. He'll help us break down the San Francisco defense versus the Dallas offense. But let's get this thing started. Nick, give me a 97. Let's get this thing started.
Taco. No. Leroy Glover.
Please don't do that.
Leroy Glover was a great football player.
He was.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was the first guy to have 4 straight Pro Bowls in his first 4 years. Zach Martin has since done that, but he was an outstanding player on some bad teams.
I'm kind of surprised he doesn't get at least to being a finalist for the Hall of Fame. He was one of those players that was so good, and he was so underrated.
He was.
And he was on bad teams at the Cowboys. I don't know what the Saints were like while he was there. But
Leroy, that stung. I hated the Cowboys for that.
Because of that? Yeah.
He was one of the Saints' best players at a time when, I mean, the Dome Patrol, obviously, but they were always second fiddle to the Niners, those teams. They never commanded their division. And so late 90s, early 2000s, it was the first taste of the Saints being a playoff type team.
Yeah. And
Leroy left in free agency. And I think it was the first time the Saints had a player that anybody else wanted. And I was probably 12, and I just damn Cowboys.
He used to piss off the TV cameras too, because he would sit in his locker and we'd go to interview him, a couple of writers, and then the cameras would show up late, and after you do the work, and then he had this big dip in his mouth, and he'd be like, "No cameras, just writers only." And they were getting pissed about it. It was because he had this big dip, didn't want to show it.
It's my kind of guy.
Yeah, it's
screw the TV people.
It didn't matter if we're doing it. He's like, "Well, they're a good team." That doesn't matter. So you don't translate that.
He was such a good player. I mean, and that's the other thing about it. Sometimes when you talk about interior defensive linemen, they don't get all the shine. But that guy was a really good player. And you could see it on a bad team, which is sometimes even harder to do, but he was really, really a good player. Yeah. All right, Nick, I want to also take a little moment, and Amber and Dave, I'm not sure if you guys have any, but I'll open it up to you if you do. But I'd like to start the show off today getting just some memories of Cowboys 49ers, because this is one of the most storied rivalries probably in the NFL. And Nick, I know because I've had some conversations with you. You have lots of memories from that. But let's just kind of see if you have some, and if you guys have some, by all means, jump in.
Well, my favorite play of all time is in this series. And we're going to do a video here in a little bit about my favorite moments from the Cowboys 49ers. But Alvin Harper catch to me was the play. It's my favorite play of all time, because that is what the catch was for the 49ers, was what that was for the Cowboys. It kind of propelled them for the entire dynasty. And it was more of nice comeback, crowd's into it, 4 minutes to go. We've been in these games. We've seen them. We're like, how do you get rid of this 4 minutes? You're going to run the ball. They're going to call timeouts. You're going to punt and all that. No, they just said, we're going to throw it over to Alvin Harper, and he's going to break away, and we're going to win this thing right here, right now. It was a mentality that they had with Jimmy Johnson. That right there. There's a lot of great ones. I got more. But that play right there symbolized more than just the play, symbolized kind of what they were about to be and taking control over the dynasty there from the Niners.
I'll let Nick have the shine there. My answers just aren't going to be that good. I'm old enough to remember that stretch of time, but not vividly. Especially, I wasn't a Cowboy fan or a 49er fan, so I wasn't invested in it. But I just remember those two teams. They were just always on. You were just always aware that was a big deal, and the winner was probably going to win the Super Bowl. For me, my most vivid Cowboys-Niners memory, other than games I've actually covered, is again probably, I don't know, 13 or 14, watching whatever Saints game was happening that day. And that Jim Brown does the break-in. And he's like, let's see what's going on in Dallas. T.O.'s standing on the star. And you're like, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? And then you're like, JB, something else is happening in Dallas. Let's cut away from the Saints. Right? Oh my God, like Emmitt Smith. T.O.'s doing it. Like, I vividly remember that. It was like they just kept cutting into that game. And like Dallas wasn't good that year, right? No. And so you didn't really have a reason to be paying attention to it until all of that started, and it was like riveting. And by the time George Teague finally hit him, I feel like I was more interested in that than whatever the Saints were doing.
Yeah, that was that kind of game. And to be honest with you, that was probably my most vivid memory of Cowboys 49ers as well, just because of the craziness of the game. Again, this was not a good team that year, but the way that game transpired, there were just all these moments where it was kind of like T.O. goes to the star. Then Emmitt goes to the star. Then T.O. goes to the star again. It was just kind of kept going, and it was like, okay, this is probably the most excitement we're going to see all season. So let's just lean into it and have some fun.
That's
with
a very unique NFL thing because, I mean, it sucks, but like the way that they still broadcast the league is so outdated. Like unless you have NFL package, you get 2 games, even in 2022, which is insane. But every now and then you'll have a moment like that where there's like drama playing out in the other game, and they're like, let's get you back to Texas Stadium where all hell has broken loose,
Right.
So
we had a game and it turned into something else.
Yeah.
No one's ever really said this, and I asked T.O. this, and he kind of just smiled or didn't really answer it. But I always believed that he did that because he right before that had filmed the movie Any Given Sunday, which was filmed at the stadium, and he was on the other team. And I think he did that in the middle of the movie, or like a play or something like that. So I think he'd just been there and he'd done that. I think that was part of it too. Yeah. I asked him once, and he didn't really answer. Yeah. He was just kind of like whatever.
Yeah. I mean, well, obviously it was perceived as much more than that, and you've seen it over the years. It's continued to play out. Teams that go out to the logo of the other team on the 50 and during their warm up, and they're jumping around on it, and it turns into this whole level of disrespect that then they feel like they have to do something to show it. I mean, it's just like it has become a thing, and I don't know if before that I'd really seen it be a thing, but it certainly became a thing that day.
What's yours?
Oh, I'm not that old. Sorry.
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
Jeff Heath kicking a field goal.
All true and all fair.
No,
right?
To be honest, and this is gonna sound ridiculous, but I am just now this week finding out how big this game is as far as like rivalry and this being a classic game and going back to those times. Like, to me, the times that I've been working here and covering this team, the 49ers have never been like such a big deal. You talk about the opponent, the week you're playing them and all that, but never like this. I didn't know that there was this kind of history behind the Cowboys and 49ers.
And don't let anybody call you silly for that, by the way, because, I mean, if you've been a fan of the game for years and years, But I mean, I've worked here since 13, and so they played here in 14. We've been out to Levi's a bunch. Like, I've lost track of it all. And they even, at one of those games, I think the Cowboys kicked their ass because the last few times they've gone out there, the 49ers haven't been a very good team. But they honored Dwight Clark at halftime of one of those games. It was when he was still alive. Yeah. And I remember kind of not being surprised, but I was like, oh, yeah, like I guess this did used to be a big deal, because even the 4 or 5 times that they've played in the regular season while I've been here, it hasn't felt like that to me. Like, it hasn't been like, oh, it's Niners week. So it's been very fun to have all of this kind of rekindled this week and have everybody sharing all of these memories.
And, that's the thing, too. You think about this 49ers matchup. Like, even recently, when there hasn't been as much consequence to the game, there's still drama. Like, you think about Jesse Holly's game. Like, that we did a documentary on Jesse Holly, and it was all built around that game because there was so much in that game for him that was, kind of this crowning moment. Obviously, he makes the game-winning play in overtime. And so there have been those kind of moments. It's that kind of drama that tends to happen when these two teams match up. And there's history that goes back even before the 90s. Yeah. Obviously, the catch that we talked about. So there's so many dramatic games.
It makes me wonder, because we know there are a lot of young players here on the roster. So it makes me wonder, when you have older coaches, people like Dan Quinn, he mentioned that, how big this game is and all that, people that know the history, that are passionate about it, that want to go out there and compete with everything. Like, how do they transmit that kind of passion and message to the younger players and get them pumped up the same type of, I mean, they're going to be pumped either way. Yeah. They're going to go out there, play a playoff game. But, I'm curious to see what those meetings look like and what kind of like fiery message they
I think it matters. I think that does matter. Even though they don't know it, I think that they just kind of understand how big the moment is. It's bigger than they even thought, and we'll see if they rise to it. But Dave said something about, just you always knew that these two teams were good and all that. I wrote this in the mailbag this morning on a question like that. The greatest line ever said to me, was in about this rivalry was Pat Summerall in an open for the 94 game. 94 NFC Championship. They played in 92, 93. Here they are again. And that was when the Pro Bowl was after. I think they had 12 and 13 players each team. And he says at the end of this whole intro, he says, in 2 weeks, the Super Bowl will be played. After that, the Pro Bowl. Today, we'll play both. And I just thought that right there was
pretty good.
Awesome because it's like it is. Yeah. And it was the Super Bowl. The Chargers weren't going to beat any of those.
Oh, yeah. For those years, it was everybody knew the NFC Championship game was the Super Bowl for those years.
I thought it was cool. Troy talks to 1310 The Ticket here every week. He's done that forever. And they asked him about being part of that. And it was cool how candid he was because, he went through the whole stretch of all of those years. And he was like, it definitely hurt because we knew that we would have treated San Diego the same way they did. Like we would have won that game. There's no question about it. It just speaks to the level that those two teams were on.
He said that they would win 4 straight because they didn't win that year, but they came back and I don't know that it's true. I mean, because I don't know if Jerry breaks the bank for Dion after that because I don't.
So if you don't have Dion that 4th year, maybe
I don't know.
Win it.
Maybe. I mean, does he go kind of all in 95 if he won 3 in a row? Did they lose more guys? It's hard to say, but they certainly would have competed for it. But
it's kind of the thing we talk about with games all the time. Like one thing kind of precipitates another, so you can't really say. Go ahead.
No. What?
No, I was just saying you can't really say what it's going to be. If those things don't happen before that. Right?
He said another really interesting thing to me, which was that he said. Losing the 94 game, which like any Cowboy fan that remembers that game, it's like they go to a different place when you bring it up. Like it without fail. See, Nick,
it hurts.
Every fan I've ever talked to who remembers that game, their eyes, they just go to a dark place.
I was a freshman in college, and man, that. I mean, crying wouldn't have helped, but I could have.
But Troy said something that I thought was interesting. Is like he was like that's one of the proudest feelings I've ever had. Leaving a football field, and I got it when he explained it. It made a lot of sense. He was like, by then we had just become associated with dominance. Like we killed the Bills in 2 Super Bowls. Like every time we play a big game, we just show up and kick ass. And for us to get down big like that and look vulnerable and not look our best and still fight back, he was like, I was proud to show America like what we were really about, that like we wouldn't go down without a fight or whatever.
I have 2 rewind moments in my life for the Cowboys. 2 that I would just want to rewind and replay it and see what happens. One of them is 2014 in Green Bay. I don't know if they would have won, but I just would have liked to have seen a touchdown there. See if they go for 2. See what Rodgers does. We're talking, obviously, the Dez game. Then the other one is the 94 game. I think Deion Sanders definitely had a pass interference on Irvin. They call that at the 5. They're going to go score. It's going to be 38-35 with 5 minutes to go. I want to see that because I think they could have stopped them and won. And that's.
How do you remember all that? 5 minutes ago, they're at the 35. Like, oh my god.
Because I just rose my hand like that one. That one hurts.
Those moments burn into your brain. They really do.
Everyone's got a moment like that, and you're right. I mean, you win 2 straight. This is the game, and they're down 21-0 before you can even get through the first beer. I mean, it was 21-0.
Yep.
You know what? And not to go too off the rails, I'm sure you want to take a break. I've been thinking about this all week, though, because it got like this is what I said when they hired McCarthy. Obviously, right now in this moment, their goal is to win the Super Bowl. It will be very disappointing if they don't win this game, all that good stuff. But like that is the goal. When you hire Mike McCarthy, I said it then, is like year after year being in the playoffs, like, 93 was great, but 94 was heartbreaking. Whereas around here recently, it's been more like, it's been 3 years since they've been in the playoffs. Like, I hope these guys remember what it takes. Like, That's what needs to change. Like they need to success for Mike McCarthy is getting back to a standard of like every year you're in the playoffs, and sometimes it's going to go really well and sometimes it's not, but you're there every year.
And you know something that's interesting? I actually was thinking about this morning. I don't know how many fans out there started to see this word victory that's on a lot of the stuff that we do, and it came actually from Coach McCarthy. It's something he's been preaching to the team all season. He's been talking about this word victory, and for the first time it kind of hit me. He basically took away their safety net. You know, you have a lot of – think back to when Garrett was here. He'd talk about what's important is the process. What's important is the fight. Like, it's all these things that you can control, right? And so – but it does leave that little gray area that even if you don't win, you should be happy for the fight. You should be happy for the process. If you do those things, that's enough. I think Mike McCarthy took away that safety net. There is nothing else other than victory. There is nothing else other than winning. That's a really scary – way to kind of put everything, because that means you either are successful or not, and it's all dependent on, at the end of the day, did you get the W? And that's a pretty bold thing to do, and it also can be a very scary thing to do, but it goes to what Dave's talking about,
standards,
being a coach and creating the standard of, our standard is not necessarily just the process. Yeah, we want you to do the same things and be good at doing the same things and preparing, but at the end of the day, you're judged by, did you win or did you lose? There is no moral victory. You either won or you didn't. And I think that to me is one of the things I look at. I'm like, that tells you a little bit about his mentality and what he wants, how he wants his team to think. That's a little bit different than maybe the previous regime.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Bucky Brooks of NFL Network. We're going to talk about this San Francisco defense versus the Cowboys offense. We'll be right back. This is DallasCowboys.com radio.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. For turning your living room into your office and your gym. For teaching Grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with...
And I'm Jay Novacek, and we're both with...
United Ag and Turf, the official tractor provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
So, if you need a tractor to bale some hay, a mower to cut some grass, or a gator to get some chores done...
Get a John Deere at United Ag and Turf.
And then, let's get to work.
Hey, Jay, that's my line.
Well, not today.
Get to work with a John Deere tractor package that's just right for you and your budget. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at stetson.com/cowboys.
New Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. You deserve it.
I do deserve that.
You deserve decadent flavor without sugar, and a day at the beach without sand getting everywhere. And a relaxing bath that your children don't interrupt.
I deserve all that?
It's really just a visual metaphor for Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. Everything you want, nothing you don't.
A visual metaphor on the radio. I do deserve that.
Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar. The zero you deserve is finally here.
Back to the break.
Be the first to receive new offers, event information, and more when you sign up to receive text messages from the team. Text Cowboys to NFLDAL. That's 635-325. Message and date rates may apply.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. We are joined right now by our guy, Bucky Brooks of NFL Network. Bucky, let's start. Let's talk about the San Francisco defense. First of all, tell me, what is it that they do best, and where are they most vulnerable?
The thing that they do well is they dominated the point of attack. They are a team that has always put their premium and invested in the defensive line, and the defensive line allows them to control the game. The most notable guy is Nick Bosa. He has 15.5 sacks coming off an ACL, which is remarkable. But he's joined by 2 guys on the inside. Eric Armstead, who's done a great job with, I think, 6.5 sacks. And then you have Arden Key, who's a situational pass rusher that has given them some help. So this is a team that wants to rush forward. They want to drop 7. and they believe that they can whip you up front with their D-line, and then they can protect the back end in coverage. Their secondary is their weakest part, but a lot of times you can't get to attack the back end because Nick Bosa and company are knocking you around and making you leave the pocket before you can really attack.
Bucky, we talked yesterday about their running game. The 49ers defense, is it good because of those guys you said, or are they even better when their offense is actually running the ball, getting the clock, and kind of controlling the game and allowing them to kind of take advantage of that?
Yeah, it's a complementary approach. I mean, they're good. I wouldn't say that they're necessarily like top 5 good on their own accord. I would say that it's the way that they play that helps them. When you're running the ball, and the 49ers have done this in a couple of games where the first drive is 15 plays, they make you punt, and they get it, and they go another 15 plays. And before you know it, you're midway in the second quarter, you have no rhythm or feel on offense, and you're chasing points. And so that allows them to play the kind of style of defense that they want to play because they want to rush the passer. They don't really want to have to go straight up and deal with the running game and stuff like that. And so as much as we talked about the 49ers running game making opponents wince and fear them, they also don't want to face a steady diet of runs because that's not necessarily what they're built for. They're built to rush the pass.
Bucky, speaking of which, you just talked about him. Imagine my surprise when I turn on this tape and my old friend from LSU, Arden Key, is not just playing well for them, but doing it at a new position. Like, it seems like they use him a lot as a D tackle. Just what have they found in this guy, and how much of a problem is that for the interior linemen on the Cowboys?
Well, one, they have one of the best D-line coaches in football, Chris Kosher, and he has unlocked Arden Key. Arden Key has found a home by playing on the inside, and they're a team that uses a lot of movement at the line of scrimmage, slanting, stunning, getting them on the move, like right as the ball goes, jumping in gaps. I mean, he's killed it. I mean, you're seeing when you put a defensive end, a guy who's a natural 240-pounder on the inside, he's working the edges of the offensive line. So he wins with quickness and hand skills as opposed to like sheer strength and power. And it's working for them. And if they get you in those situations where they're able to unleash him and he doesn't have to worry about the run, well, then it becomes a problem. And so you're seeing Arden Key kind of playing the way that maybe some imagined him being a disruptive force. He's just doing it at a different position.
Man, I don't really even know what to ask because I feel like every week it's like, okay, we always have one more week. But then this week it's like, this is it. They're all in with this. So I guess what I want to ask you, Bucky, is after seeing the way that they played last week, even though it was with an opponent that didn't have many of their starters or anything like that, what are some of the things that you think that the Cowboys might still struggle with despite of the kind of performance they put out last week?
This game comes down to the offensive line. It comes down to how well they play at the point of attack. If Tyron Smith, La'el Collins, Zach Martin, Tyron Bettis, and Connor Williams play well, then the Cowboys win. If they have any problems, then it's going to be a long day. And that's just what it comes down to. And so it's the ability to control the guys up front. And if you can do that and slow down Bosa and Armstead and contain Fred Warner and those guys at the second level, then you dominate the game and you do it the way that you've done it for most of the season. But if you have issues and it cracks up front, it's going to make it very uncomfortable because you won't be able to run the football, and then Dak will have to maybe do too much in terms of like having to make more plays because I wouldn't want to see him have to throw it 40-plus times. Even though he's more than capable of being able to do that, that's not the game that the Cowboys should want to be able to get into in the postseason. So it's all about the trenches. Whoever wins the trenches ultimately is going to win the game.
Bucky, I'm going to ask you a bigger picture question. We actually got this question from one of our listeners, Colin Brennan. He asked, what areas on offense and defense does Dallas have the advantage over San Francisco? Because I think all week, listening to our show and listening to a lot of media, everybody's like, man, this is a tough matchup for Dallas. Where is it a tough matchup for San Francisco?
I mean, defending the Cowboys. I mean, let's be honest. Like, the star power is real. And we do play these narratives in the media like, oh, you never want to face the Niners. They're the hottest team. But, look, they got 7 losses on their ledger. So they have issues, too. And the big thing with the Niners is you have to make sure that you're attacking. What you want to do is you want to play from in front and put the game on Jimmy Garoppolo. So the advantage is for the Cowboys quarterback, wide receiver, even though Debo Samuel is legit, the wide receivers still go that way. The offensive line, I would say, is almost a bit of a push, depending upon like which version of Trent Williams comes back, because he's played at a great level. The defensive line, I would say, is fairly even. Linebackers, I mean, it's kind of even. The defensive backs would go to the Cowboys. And so it's kind of an even matchup, but really it's style. It's who's able to impose their style early in the game and make the game be played out a certain way. If the Cowboys jump in front and are able to play the game from in front, then it's an easier game for them. If it's one of those games where the Niners shorten the game and they run it, then it becomes an all-day affair. But no, we have overblown it and made it where the 49ers are the 49ers from the 90s, and they're not that.
Yeah.
So that being said about playing in the lead, when the referee announces before the kickoff that the Cowboys have won the toss, what's your decision? What do you think it should be?
Well, I always want to defer, because the reason why I want to defer is because at the end of halves, there's what we call a double score opportunity, right? So if you score at the end of the half and then you get the ball back, you get a chance to really separate and explode from the opponent. So I would rather play it that way, even though I understand what you're saying. If you feel like your offense is that potent that you want to go ahead and jump on them, I still would opt for that, even though I know if the Niners get the opening kick, they're going to sit on the ball now. I mean, it's going to be like watching Wisconsin play basketball. It's half court. It's the clock. I mean, it's the clock draining and all that. So that's why it's going to be really important for them to jump on the running game early and get them out of that. Because if you can force Jimmy Garoppolo to pass, I would say more than 27 times, the Cowboys win. He's not going to throw that much and be effective.
Do you think that if they try this, because it seems like there should be a lot of plays to be made against their secondary, do you trust the Dallas offensive line to keep Dak on his feet in long enough to take advantage of that, basically?
I would say they can do that, but I say the ball needs to come out quick. I would say that looking at how they want to play, because they want to drop 7 in coverage. They're not necessarily a Tampa 2 or a cover 2 team. They kind of play single high safety or some quarters. You want to get the ball out quickly, let Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. You want them to go to work on run after the catch plays. You can attempt to kind of push it down the field, but you have to set those up. We saw how the Rams struggled when they just got greedy for no reason, because they're going to play over the top. Because just like we can see it, D'Amico Ryans knows, hey, man, my corners are not the best. Let's keep everything in front. Let's not let it fly over our head. And so you have to be patient. So it's going to take some patience, some discipline. And I heard you guys talking before about the playoffs, and like it's been 3 years. The people that I'm really looking at are not the players. It's Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn and how they handle calling the game in the postseason. Kellen Moore in particular, as a young play caller, when the game is very emotional, you can deviate and leave the running game when it's not successful early. How patient is he going to be with taking a balanced approach? That might be the deciding factor in whether the Cowboys win or not. How Kellen Moore handles the playoff environment and atmosphere, having never called the game in the postseason.
Hey, Bucky, real quick as a follow-up to that, how much do you put on the head coach, though? He has a lot of experience knowing that he has a young play caller. Is it his responsibility to also be able to get in Kellen's ear if he feels like he's not being patient enough and say, hey, let's remember, let's stick to our plan, let's continue to run the ball, even if it's not necessarily working?
I would say this. If we're looking at the game, you guys will be there. But if you're looking at the game on TV, if you don't see Mike McCarthy doing a lot of talking, he is doing his job a disservice. This is a game where a Super Bowl winning head coach has to put his imprint on the game. He needs to be more active, more involved in the stuff. And I'm not saying take the play card from Kellen Moore, but this game has to go according to the script that Mike McCarthy has. That's why he was hired. He was hired because he's been the one to win Super Bowls, not those other guys. He has to lead this team. And so, yeah, he has to play a bigger role in managing the game. And I know for some of us that makes it squeamish based on what we've seen, but he has won it. He needs to play and perform and make sure the game looks like a championship-level game.
Bucky, and then I just want to ask you, how good is their kicker?
I think the thing about Robbie Gould is you kind of just know what you're getting. Look, he's made some big kicks throughout his time. He has some misses this year. I think if we're comparing the two, he's been more consistent this year But look, man, in the game, it's a 50-50 proposition when you're dealing with kickers of all levels. So, you just hope that Greg Z is on if he's called upon to make kicks. But Roger Gold is solid, and so it's just one of those things where you just hope that Greg Z is on his game. If he's on his game, then you don't worry. But man, it's squeamish because I heard you guys talking about 2-point conversions or whatever yesterday. Holy smokes! You don't want it to get to that, and you can't. And that's the thing, because yes, they get a chance to say it, but in the playoffs, the one thing that you can't do is you cannot change. If you've done things a certain way the entire time, you cannot decide in the playoffs, we're switching it up. We're more aggressive. We're going for it on fourth down. If that's not our MO, you still got to play it the way that you've always played it. Because players will look around like, coach is tripping. Why is he panicking? So you just got to play it straight. If Greg Z's your guy, you got to trust him. You just got to live with it.
All right, give us a prediction. What do you think is going to happen this Sunday?
I think the Cowboys are going to win. I think the Cowboys are the better team. I think it has to play. I think it will be tight just because I worry about the inexperience for some of their guys, Micah and Trayvon and some of those guys. But if they can get through the first quarter and the game is either even or they're up, I think they begin to separate away from them late.
All right. We appreciate that, Bucky. We will talk to you hopefully next week, and as we're getting ready for round 2. We'll see about that. We're going to take our final break. We'll come back. We got some questions for these guys about this Dallas offense. We'll be right back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now, you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites, plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
At AT&T, everyone, new and existing customers, get our best deals on every smartphone. Why? Because you deserve it. For turning your living room into your office and your gym. For teaching grandma how to video call and teaching her again.
It's the button on your left, Nana. Okay, your other left.
It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving everyone, new and existing customers, our best deals with every unlimited plan on every smartphone, even the latest ones.
AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Restrictions and exceptions may apply.
Hi, I'm Clint Tillison with...
And I'm Jay Novacek, and we're both with...
United Ag and Turf, the official tractor provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
So, if you need a tractor to bale some hay, a mower to cut some grass, or a gator to get some chores done...
Get a John Deere at United Ag and Turf.
And then, let's get to work.
Hey, Jay, that's my line.
Well, not today.
Get to work with a John Deere tractor package that's just right for you and your budget. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com.
Before there was a draft, you could size up a cowboy by 3 simple factors: the crease in his hat, the bend of his brim, and his unbending attitude. A man's Stetson didn't just protect him from what life threw at him, it projected a rugged, unstoppable spirit. Stetson hats are still American-made with pride right here in Texas. They're still the unofficial crown of all self-respecting cowboys, and Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Find a retailer nearest you at Stetson.com/Cowboys.
Back to the break.
All right, Sunday, 3:30 against the 49ers. It's time to white out the stadium at AT&T Stadium. Wear your white. Visit DallasCowboys.com/2021 playoffs for more details. If you need more, it's really just wear white.
Pretty simple.
It's gonna look. End zones are gonna look like like little.
I'm not worried. I'm not worried about this.
No, I'm not
there,
worried.
There will be red in the stadium, but it won't.
It won't be like last week.
It won't come close to looking like that.
It's going to stand out a lot more.
Snap. Yeah.
It will. It's going to stand out because it's red. I think that's the big thing. It's the easiest color to notice of any. But
especially if you're white, if you've got a white out.
Right? I don't remember if I said this here or on something else, but like they played Green Bay in the playoffs. And that nobody said diddly about this. And Green Bay is just like San Francisco. Like, they've got fans in every building in the league. Playoffs are different.
Yeah.
It ain't going to be that big of a deal.
We will see. It'll be interesting. And I do think that
they're better on the road anyways. It's not like it really matters. The Cowboys are a better football team on the road, or they'll have a better record on the road than they were at home.
I don't like which it won't happen, but like Matt Stafford had to go to a silent count in his own building last week.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
But that's also the thing about AT&T Stadium. And Jerry talked about this on The Fan earlier this week. It's one of the largest stadiums from a standpoint of number of seats that it accommodates or number of people that it accommodates. And so by the nature of that, you're going to have more visiting fans that will be at this stadium than you typically see all around the league. So I think there's going to be some. I just don't think there'll be a ton of Cowboys fans who are willing to sell tickets for a playoff game.
Yeah, and also I think you got to remember that game was obviously on the schedule. That's the first time the 49ers have ever played in SoFi where the fans could come in.
Yeah.
So they weren't allowed last year. So that one's probably been marked on calendars for a long time.
Go see the new stadium.
We're going to go see the stadium and go watch them play the Rams and all that. So that was probably a lot of that.
All right, go ahead, Amber.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I didn't ask Bucky because we were already finishing up, but when one of the last things he mentioned was inexperience and how they might struggle with that with the younger players. But I'm wondering, like, how does that really change at a playoff game with guys? For example, he mentioned Micah. How would his quote unquote inexperience affect in a playoff game the first week? Because you get into the playoffs and it's not like you instantly got 10 times better as the opposing team, so you know what I'm trying to figure out, like how
are
would
they
that
going to be
change?
nervous? It's just to me it's how are they mentally? I mean, how do they handle the pressure? All this talk and now, especially with the historical significance, if that even matters. I mean, it's just you're just putting a lot of pressure in there. Are they focused on what they need to do? Can they block all that and still perform? Some players do it, some players don't.
And the idea, I mean, it's over. It's over if you lose. The stakes are higher. Mm-hmm. You're not only you're one loss away from 8 months of whatever, and you're only 3 wins away from the Super Bowl. So that way, and it ratchets up each time you advance. You're like, if we win 2 more games, like we're Super Bowl champs. I mean, that's only human nature that would get to you. I don't worry about it, especially with Micah. Micah hasn't been fazed by anything that's happened to him this entire time. I would be surprised if he's not up for that challenge. But it is a mental challenge.
Yeah, and a lot of that mental, I think, also goes to the fact of the intensity of the game. I remember first time I just started working for the Cowboys. Nick, you might remember it was that playoff game against Minnesota. And I was standing on the sideline watching the teams come out, and you could just feel it. It's a different feeling. It's a different level of intensity. And again, once the whistle blows, it's still a football game. But for every round, that intensity ratchets up because all week you got friends and family like, oh, it's the playoffs. Like it's just that, like Dave said, it is that mental of being able to get rid of the noise and the distractions and the thoughts of how big and the magnitude of the game and being able to settle in and play football. Whoa. So when you're experienced, you have a little bit more to rely on, like, okay, this is still just a football game. When you're less experienced, it's like sometimes you can get caught up in that, and it can take you a while to settle down into the game and just play football.
Brett Favre had, that was a big problem for him. He was one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and he was an MVP, and he would go in to the Cowboy games, and it'd take him second quarter before he could settle down, before he realized that there was an actual crown on the stadium, and you got to throw those out routes. He's throwing them in the stands because he's just so jacked up. So even some of the best players, it kind of gets to them.
Well, and you'll see it. Watch every game of this magnitude. Whoever makes like the first few plays of the game, the first guy that makes a big hit or a nice catch, it's going to be over the top. Like if Micah gets a tackle for loss on like the first series of the flexing and the scream. I mean, it's a different level of intensity. And Bucky's right. I mean, getting through like the first quarter, once you get into the flow of the game and you're just kind of in the zone and not worrying about it, that's really important in these types of games.
And to give you an indication, I've heard players talk about this in Super Bowls. It'll just tell you the magnitude. When the magnitude goes up, sometimes feeling like they're hyperventilating when the game's starting because they're so hyped up, they're so amped, there's so much juice flowing through them that it can get you and it can take you away a little bit, and you kind of have to settle back into playing football. So, yeah, I think when you talk about the playoffs, it is an increased level of intensity. And it gets a little bit tougher mentally. I think the game's still going to be the game, though. And once they settle in, I think they're fine.
I really do think a lot of the key guys on this team are well suited for it, though.
I agree.
I mean, there's just a lot of guys on this team where I just don't think things get to them very easily.
Yeah. I think I remember we were in Carolina. And that pregame, and we were both standing down there, and every fan's going crazy. The teams are like seething at each other, and it's just. And Nick turned to me and said, "We're not winning this game."
That's where the white towel theory started.
Yeah,
it was like
we're not winning this game.
When they introduced Stephen Davis, their running back, and it was like. And they had just beaten them like in Thanksgiving. They had just beaten them, and it was a big win. And
it just felt different.
What year?
03.
03.
Yeah. That was the one after the game where
the 9-7.
Yeah, where
they're not losers anymore.
Steve Smith hit him with the. What did he say? He said something pretty crazy after the game. I couldn't even remember what he said, but he said something like we whipped the ass.
Yeah.
But it was pretty clear that
Steve Smith? No.
Right, yeah, right.
Doesn't sound like him.
But that you could you feel it. Like you go down on the sideline for a regular season game, for all the regular season games, and then you go down for one for a postseason game. It is a very, very different feeling. It is a very high level of intensity. I'm so ready for this game.
Ready to play.
Cannot wait to play.
Yeah,
I do not want to play.
No, I don't want to. No. I feel like it brought us. Like, let's play. Let's go play the game.
That's a wrap.
We got another show to do tomorrow. So
we do. And when we come in tomorrow, our goal will be to get these listeners ready for this game. We'll have lots of thoughts about what we think is going to happen, good and bad for the Cowboys. We'll do that tomorrow. Till then, for Nick Eatman, Dave Hellman, Amber Garcia, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break, live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys?